Welcome to another episode of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. I am Sean Ennis. I am joined here today with superhero David Soden, who's going to take us through on why we need our number two pencils, right? Or what our digital number two pencils are. What do you think, David?
Something like that for sure. And this is a relatively new piece of software. So if you're a leader and you're not very technical, stay tuned for some of the high level stuff that I'll cover on the beginning of this, kind of just as a walkthrough talk intro. And then you can go have a conversation with all of the people in the back room that do all of the implementation. But the majority of this, the 80% of the show, is going to be dedicated towards getting it into the weeds, getting hands dirty, and trying to see kind of what this stuff does. All right, so to get started, I am going to pop up on screen a website for all of you to go visit. This is pencil.dev. It's relatively new, and just this Sunday or this morning, they had versions of this to download for both Apple and Linux, but they didn't have the Windows download. It just said coming soon. So this morning, thank goodness, I was thinking I was going to have to do this on my Mac today, but thank God Windows came out. So if this chokes, I haven't tried everything. I know how it works on a Mac. So if it just blows up, I haven't fully played with and tested the Windows version. But the high level overview of what this pencil.dev is here, I do believe that I have, you know what, I'll let you guys play this video on your own. I've already got it pulled up here in the real world, and we'll show you what this is. But this is a way for you to use Claude Code, and not just Claude Code. You can do any number of AIs to interact with it. So on the left right here, I've snapped in Claude Code. Okay, this is just sitting here in an empty directory. If I pull this up onto the screen here, I've got a repo and I have TLP for Transformation Leaders Podcast. There's nothing in this folder. Everything is no smoke and mirrors. But what I do want to show you is show you some of the kits. Now, religiously, up until this point, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I want to say between October and December, sometime last year, Claude Code introduced all of these different extra really neat plugins. So if you're in Claude Code, and let me do this a little bit out so we can kind of explore this together. And I type in plugins. If you look at the marketplaces, the marketplace is just essentially the Claude Code, and you can plug it into a couple of additional ones. Now, if you're not familiar with plugins and the marketplace and things of that nature, excuse me, it's a place that you can go and get extra functionality, extra skills, a whole bunch of extra stuff, including there will be some MCP servers that you can download. One of the things that's really neat that's out there is this front end design. This is something relatively new that came out. Now, historically, I used this Shatton CN UI. It's a website. It has an MCP server. It's one of the first visually graphical MCP servers to come out on the market. And as a result of that, I had been able to create some not only really highly functional stuff, but stuff that has a really neat and sexy back end. And so the problem with that is that it's fine for me as an individual. It's a little bit harder for teams to coordinate. But with the introduction of this pencil application and how tightly integrated it is into Claude Code, you can start building visualizations separately outside of Claude. So Claude can use it to do the initial design, but then you take this initial design and you send it over to your Figma design experts or your design team, and they can work in a native tool that's very similar. Pencil app is very similar, almost identical to what Figma is. If you've ever used Figma, great. That'll be helpful. If you're not familiar, Figma is another application that you design user interfaces for applications. And right now I'm showing you some design system components. So let's just go into, we'll pick Nitro. And so Nitro, if I dig into here and try to pan around a little bit, these are some user interface components that are already pre-baked. These are certain status interactions. Like it's giving you all of the elements, all of the control mechanisms that go into building a user interface. They don't look remarkable on their own. They don't necessarily do anything per se, but that's one type of kit. If I come over here, I can go to the welcome file. We look at this, and so this has got a whole bunch of additional ones. I like dark backgrounds and different things of that nature. But the point here is that all of your control elements are already baked in, and these are just a handful of them. There's going to be more that's going to be coming. You're going to see lots and lots of additional templates that happen. So all of this stuff is going to be extremely helpful in creating a user interface. Now, I'm going to go flip back over here to Claude Code. I'm going to try to snap this over to the corner to kind of leave all of this out. The other thing I wanted to show you, let me get out of here. I'm going to go to the MCP servers. So if you install Pencil and you run it, you have to have it running first. That's the first step. It'll automatically create, when you launch this app, not only do you get the user interface, but you get along for the ride a whole bunch of additional configurations. So if I look at this MCP, you can see this supports Claude Code. If I don't want to use Claude Code, I can turn it off. If you want to use, I think it's OpenAI's Codex CLI, you can use that. You can use Google Gemini, OpenCode, which is a free open source. You got Cairo. You got a handful of these and a bunch of other ones, and a bunch of different ways to connect MCP servers to these agents so that the user isn't using Pencil anymore. These AI bots are going to now interact with this. And if you caught our last show, I started talking about introduction, MCP discovery, ping, like what can you do for me? What services do you offer? That type of stuff. And so Claude is going to reach out to this Pencil MCP when I direct it to. It's going to do a discovery. It says, hey, what are you capable of doing? Or what can you do for me? And it's going to reach a hold of all of this, and it's going to design the initial application. Now, if you get lucky, you might get 100%. I would say, though, you're going to get 70 to 80%, maybe even 90% of the way there. And you can give it to your designers, and they can change and swap out fonts. They can swap out colors that may not be quite right. There's a whole bunch of noodling that your design teams can do. And then once they're done, you can give it back to Claude and says, now update the information or update the code using the Pencil file as the template, as the authoritative design for the design spec. And then it just goes out and redesigns and reskins all of your application based on what that feedback is. So I'll try to show you the workflow as much as possible. Some of this may be like watching paint dry. We'll try to do a better job of what we've done in the past to help minimize that, and I'll do some edits here on the backside. So let's go over and let's show you the MCP command, because this will give you a list of MCP servers. Now, I currently have it connected to GitHub, where I have all of my repos. I have it connected to LangFuse. Now, here is Pencil. This is the application I'm talking about. Now, these are the MCP servers that it's connected to. Now, always I've had it connected to since, again, day one, Shad and CN. That's the other user interface for tools and all of this other stuff. The problem with Shad was it was all programmatically. You couldn't see it. You didn't know what it was going to do. You could control it after the fact, but you were working in the code with live code and Shad and Claude Code or whatever to deal with it. This is a little bit different, and you actually get a separate design tool as an extra step, which is good because you can coordinate between developers and designers and keep the separation of concerns, but still get all of the benefits all at the same time and rapid application development, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And then, of course, you see there's a bunch of other AIs that's along for the ride here. So I'm going to do something simple of just saying, hey, oh, I forgot to hit my record button. Hey, I need you to build me a simple Hello World website. I want you to use the plugin or MCP server for the front-end that you have access to, and create me something really cool, maybe something with some animations and a little bit of interactivity. All right, so as you can see, this is going off to the races. You'll be able to watch what's going on through here. And by the way, if you're looking down here at the bottom of the context window and you see context window 13%, Opus 4.6, there was another video that I had done showing about how to get that there. That's not part of Claude by default, and it's extremely helpful that's there, but that's part of the custom footers that you can do. So you can see what's going on. It's using the skill, which is a plugin, but it winds up being installed as a skill. And by the way, all of these are just really just prompts. They're markdown documents. At the end of the day, if you know anything about Linux, the concept of Linux as an operating system, all is files. And that's unlike Windows, where you got compiled binaries and all this other stuff. And so a lot of this hocus pocus magic is all a bunch of really prompts in markdown files. And all of this is just a bunch of plain normal language, readable text files that tell the AI what to do. And as a result, it's going through and it's burning through this stuff. Now, this should be a lot faster, a lot easier as far as developing stuff. I'm coming over here to check to see if it's actually written any files yet. And it's still going through thinking. Let's see what's going through here. This is all build, cosmic noir, dark expressive theme. And with the latest release of Claude Code, which I'm using the latest one because I run, before I get into this, Claude and then space, no dashes, just update. And I try to make sure that it's up to date. And by the way, if you're on Windows, like you're seeing that I am, don't run it through WSL anymore. It got kludgy and hokey if you had documents and things that way that needed to be done. But now they have their own separate installer and it runs completely on its own and doesn't have to piggyback off of a bunch of additional services. So actually, I just got a pop-up and it launched the website. And so this is what it did out of the box using its new built-in skill on its own. This is the Claude Code, yeah, easy for me to say, Claude Code plugin. And it's got a little bit of annoying animation. Actually, it does calm down. If I jiggle the mouse more, it goes crazy, but that's kind of cool. In any event, you got a very basic and simple hello world, and that's pretty cool. But the problem is it's in code. So I need a developer to tweak and pull on this, or I need to be able to speak with Claude Code. And you'll need a vibe coder or a professional developer to interact with Claude Code. But what about your designer? What are they going to do? And so that's where this new pencil comes in. And so we've got this all done for you in a different way. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear this conversation as to not pollute. So we'll clear this up, and I'm going to give it another prompt. I would like you to create another example welcome web page, not a hello world. We have an existing hello world folder, so don't put anything else in that. Outside of that, create me another folder for this project. But this time I need you to use the Pencil MCP server, and I need you to pick something that's really cool. I want animations. I want essentially a mock-up website that I can go ahead and use to develop for a lawn care service, and do your best to get me an initial design that I can hand off to my design team. Okay, so now it knows that it has access to the MCP server, which I showed you earlier when we did the MCP. You saw that it was connected. And so what will happen is it'll go through here. You can see Pencil getting editor state, including schema, true. This is where it's getting in there and asking Pencil, hey, what can you do? And see, get style guide tags. It's asking it essentially for the user manual, and that's going to give it the lay of the land as to what's possible. What can it do? What can it not do? And so while this is working through on this side, I'm going to kind of try to walk you through a little bit of the user interface on Pencil. So I am not a Figma user to that extent, but they do use, actually, it looks like it's taking control of Claude Code for me automatically. So I'm not going to be able to show you that. So it's working through. And just like Figma, the concept of frames is also used here. inside of Pencil. So again, if you have designers that are used to working in Figma, this is exactly what, I'm sorry, I'm trying to chew bubble gum and talk at the same time. It's not working. Anyway, you can start to see the site unfold here. But anybody that's a Figma designer, again, will be very, very familiar with the concepts that's going on in Pencil. And so right now, you're going to watch the MCP server being controlled by Claude. It's not writing any code. It's instructing the Pencil application. So this is like working on my desktop as if it's a designer. And the asset, the output isn't code. This is a Pencil file that I can, when it's done, save the file. I think it's PEN is the file extension. And I can save that PEN file. I can send it to my designer in SharePoint or in the repo or any number of ways. And they can noodle on this to do whatever needs to be done. So you're seeing how fast that these things can be handled. Now, in a previous video last year, I don't remember, about the same time, walked you guys through agents. I think we did something really ridiculous, like a chef in the kitchen, and we created a bunch of different roles that we were going to need and wanted to show you how easy it was to use Claude Code in creating agents. So whether you're a team or you're a one-man band or you have lots and lots of developers working on their own projects, but they're human component, as opposed to letting the developers go, they're responsible for controlling their own staff, their own digital staff, and they own a project and they have a repo that they're working through, and they're knocking out code and assets unlike anything we've ever seen before. And so as opposed to humans all working on one project, they've all separated out, all responsible for dealing with their agentic teammates. And so now they're orchestrating, and they're the ones responsible. They're the human in the loop, developing all of this fantastic code, software, and stuff. There was several articles that I read recently where nobody is writing code anymore at some of these companies, and they haven't written it since December, November last year. So a lot of these companies are pretty much almost all hands off now. They got everything dialed in. They got their guardrails dialed in. And again, agents, prompts, checking, agents checking other agents. I mean, they're stacking agents on top of agents. And anytime they run into an issue of a QC or quality control program, it writes the lessons learned like a retrospective. And then boom, the AI self-improves itself. In the next loop, the next iteration, it will never make that same mistake again because it's already been known and documented and resolved. So exciting time. So Sean, while we're waiting for the paint to dry, you want to add anything to what we're seeing, or any personal experiences you've had with all of this?
Yeah. I want to be clear. This is how product managers are going to manage products in the future. Right? I certainly believe this, people call it vibe programming. I think that is a mistake. This is programming. This is how it's going to be, everyone. And again, you're talking to a person who went to 4 years through college to learn how to program. I have, several conceptual coding tattoos on. I've done C. I've done C++. I've done Java. I've done all those histories of code. Simple fact of it all is the point of software development is to take an idea and monetize it as quickly as possible. That's the world we live in. This is how it's going to be done. And now, is there a role for software development in the area of safety? Yes, absolutely. But being able to create what you want to do, which is basically writing a document, creating several different variants of an interface, and being able to pick which is which and what it is, this can do that really well, as you're seeing. Once you have that variant, then taking it as the template and uplifting it to all the different features that you want is going to be part of that as well. I still think there's a role for human in the loop at the end of this to read through, look at the code, and make sure it's right. You know, developers are going to be more like supervisors and architects than they are going to be pick up a flat file that's empty and start import, and all that is done. So again, this is just the next generation, and I'm telling you, they're not going to stop improving this. They're not. And it's going to be where software is going to be ephemeral, where when you talk to a interface, it will build the interface as you talk to it. And then next time you're in, it'll be exactly what you want.
Yeah, it looks like Claude is trying to be super helpful, and it's anticipating what's going on. So it's actually creating the HTML, JavaScript, CSS code for this site. So I will have two pieces of assets, one for technical debt for your developer team or developer, and then the other one, which will be the pencil Figma-like design to go to the designer. I'm okay letting it run because eventually I'll need to do it anyway. But if you ran into a situation where you didn't want this to happen again, this is the problem where AI, especially Claude, it tries to anticipate your needs in advance, and most times, 8 to 7 times out of 10, it's okay. It's actually pretty dang good. Because a lot of times it will pick up on things that either I was going to do next or that I forgot. So there are certain times where maybe you don't want to do it. And if that's the case, you can write that into an agent or write that into a rule, and then you will have it to maybe explicitly ask for permissions to do whatever, or put it in the prompt, because I didn't explicitly call out, do not generate any code. So it took it as, hey, let me try to jump ahead and be helpful for you. But another thing that it did do that I'm noticing that typically it normally doesn't do, and I don't want this to be misleading for any of you. I have a API key that's free. There's a website out there called Pexels, P-E-X, Pexels for free. And Pexels is a way to get stock images and stock libraries. So you can log into here and you can get an API key. Now, what I've done in the past is I've created a skill in Claude Code at my personal login account level, which means any and all projects that I work on have access to this skill. And I named it Pexels. And so what I told it to do is I said, look, anytime I'm developing a website, I need you to go out and grab the imagery contextually as it relates to what it is that I'm working on. And then what I need you to do is to downsize or downsample it, because that image is pretty large. And you can see the thumbnail that I'm using here is quite small. And so programmatically, it wrote some Python code to do the resizing. It changed the file extension to be more consistent. And now it sees that skill. And so if it has access to the skill, and it knows that, hey, I should do this here and it's applicable to what I'm trying to use. It's trying to do that. Unfortunately, I've been using Claude Code and I keep stacking on all of these things that I've done. So a lot of times, somebody will be brand new to Claude, get it fresh set up, or actually I had a problem a couple months ago. I crashed my computer. I did something stupid, which is often the case when you're developing and just pushing things to the limit. And in any event, I had to start from scratch, and I forgot that I didn't restore from backup any of the additional cool things that I built in Claude. So I got so used to them being there. In any event, the point is, just because you see developer A do something and developer B is not able to produce the same outcome, this is a blessing and a curse, right? Because right now, there's not a whole lot of enterprise level synchronizing of development environments or these types of agents where somebody creates something really cool. It should be shared with the group. Hopefully, you guys are still having your retrospectives. This is an excellent time to say, hey, I created this skill, I created this whatever. And then you have a formal review process about whether or not this should be part of your software development lifecycle and your coding standards for either the project or for your company or for any number of things. That way, everybody can benefit from collective, works that everybody is running through. But in any event, you can see now we've got a pretty nice looking website here. It's got all the images and graphics and interactive. If I go into the lawn care side of things, I can see that I actually have the website that is up and running. Actually, I got a little bit of animation to go with it. So we get a little bit of this going on. I can click through, click down. I got all these extra images popping up, got animations with all of these different numbers. And all of this was created through Pexels. I mean, for a first run website, this looks about as compelling as any major retailer out there handling lawn care or any boutique service that's doing development websites. So I do see a couple things that I would noodle on, but not too many. I would say, from my opinion, and I'm pretty, I don't know, I'd say I'm pretty picky. I would say this is about 90% of the way done. There's other pages like About Us and all the other stuff that needs to get handled, but I only said to do a home page. But now that it knows, it already has the theme, the colors, and everything already there. It is very light work to flesh out the next couple of pages to deal with this. So you're seeing the code that was in the folder. If I go back to the Pexels, I can go back to here and I can do, let's save as, and let me come down to repo and TLP, and I'll go into the lawn care. I'll do a new folder for pencil, and I'll just say this is design pen. And so now if I go into the pencil folder, I just have this single file. It's only 112 kilobytes, extremely small. And so we can send this up to anywhere that we want to go. And again, they can noodle on it, do whatever they want to do. I'll give you the full experience now that we're done, or Claude Code is done doing whatever. Let's just say I didn't like this color of this button. I can click on this element down and through here. I can click into this element down there, and over here I have the fill color. So here is essentially a control panel for this button. It allows me to set all of the different properties to it. It's visually driven, and if I go to click on the color, I can literally select the color. I can drag and drop. As you can see, the color's changing all through here. I can change it to anything I want. But the point is, really simple for a designer to go in and do their magical thing to help enhance this or keep the human in the loop along with your AI. So really make short work of it. And then I can save the pencil file. Designer would give it back to me. And I would say, hey, implement the changes made in the file, and then maybe try to help it a little bit, and just some notes that the button in the Heroes section of the homepage, if you're not familiar with Heroes, this top banner area, and go ahead and just change the color of the button and any other number of changes, kind of like a manifest. Otherwise, it will have to do a differential and compare. If you have two pencil files, the before and the after, you can tell it to just say, hey, listen, look at the differences between the two of these. This is the one that you need to implement the changes that are made. And then it'll go off and do that. I've tested both of those use case scenarios, and that works really, really well as in addition to that. So hopefully Pencil is your new best friend, in addition, not solely, but in addition to Shadden CN, which does your graphical visual implementations. Again, in Claude Code, the plugins, the front-end designer is there, plus a plethora of other of these. But this is a good example of MCP. Kind of gives you an idea how that goes on and how to basically skill up your software and take it to the next level. Sean?
Yep, I know I've used some skill plugins for Claude to create Excel spreadsheets, and it worked extremely well. So MCP is a thing, everyone. A lot a lot of people talk about the limitations of what AI has. Well, this is how a lot of those can be overcome. And the library is going to continue to grow. I can tell you, 3 years ago, I remember having a conversation with some of the best and brightest people about creating PowerPoint presentations with AI. And they flat out told me it'll never happen. They said, nope, it is too complex. It will never happen. The second part was, if it does happen, Microsoft will do it and they'll charge you an arm and a leg. You could go to Copilot and build those extremely quickly. We've talked about Gamma.app, Notebook LM. Look, no matter what the rules appear to be today, you can imagine they're being rewritten tomorrow. So thanks, David, for walking us through Pencil. And again, I think it's an excellent follow-on. Just going through and listing out some of the other MCP servers or skills that you can load into your AI of choice to be able to build things, because I think MCP is going to be a big part of what we do in the future. It's going to unlock a lot of value in AI today and into the future.
Yep, totally agree. And just because MCP is what it is, it doesn't come without its plethora of issues, challenges, security nightmares, and problems and challenges there. But Sean had mentioned a couple of times in a couple of our previous shows that their analogy is that an MCP server or an MCP is akin to a USB. Well, they have USB-A, USB-B, C, different types of ports, different user interfaces. So just expect MCP A, B, and C to also come onto the scenes here over the next couple of months, days, weeks, years, however long it comes to be, and probably competing standards. But right now, MCP seems to have taken a hold back in, November of 2024. It was first announced by Anthropic, and man, did it take off. Probably about this time last year, and just never stopped, and it's still going strong. But in any event, we've run out of time today, so you guys can check us out again every Wednesday here on the Transformation Leaders Podcast. We've got our website URL down at the bottom. Please visit us there. If you want to get a hold of Sean or I, we are available on that form that is on our website. You can catch our previous editions that are up there. You can click through each and every one of them. But until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.